U.S. military preps team for Ebola response in United States. That's the big headline on DrudgeReport.com. It's a CNN story. That is coming up after the break, and a special guest, formerly with the Central Intelligence Agency, on Ebola.
In every crisis, whether engineered, natural, or accidental, the Obama administration has exacerbated it as an opportunity for control and manipulation. The Ebola outbreak is no different. But there are many people, from the powerless to the political and corporate elites, from hippies to microbiologists like Eric Pianka, who want radical depopulation. Just look at this letter to the editor. Of course, it refers to James Lovelock's Gaia theory, a popular way to sell radical depopulation to the masses, to the very people against whom it will be used.
I see the Earth as more than just a mixture of living things and inanimate matter. I see it as a tightly coupled entity.
And the way it's presented to the masses, it anthropomorphizes the Earth as a living organism and presents humans not as the stewards of God's created Earth, but as a virus. And Lovelock himself conveniently plays into their global warming alarmism, talking about global warming being a fever that the planetary organism, the Earth, gets from the virus, the humans.
And I like to think of it as a kind of organism and not just a lump of rock with life on it. Any organism can have periods of ill health, and it was pretty unfortunate of us to start worsening the fever that the planet was already in.
And of course, environmentalists quickly draw the obvious conclusion that if mankind's a virus, a cancer, it must be eradicated. And so Gaia has been used to put a pagan, New Age, happy face mask on the grim reaper of depopulation and sell it as both necessary and inevitable.
So what do you think is a viable figure that Gaia, that the planet can sustain?
I would guess, living the way we do, not more than 1 billion, probably less.
Here you sit saying we are facing doom. We are facing the possibility of 5/6 of our human population being wiped out within a century.
The theme has been picked up and repeated in popular culture.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
So how do we get rid of this human virus that threatens our beloved Earth Mother, Gaia? Or, as another scientist puts it, those upright mammalian weeds. As the Church of Euthanasia puts it in their Gaia Liberation Front proposal, solutions to get rid of the human virus, like nuclear war or sterilization, just aren't as effective as bioengineering. It has the advantage that it could be done with just one person who has the right technical expertise. And there are multitudes of people with the technical expertise and the philosophical bent to do this, as Alex Jones pointed out in the documentary Endgame 7 years ago.
Prominent University of Texas biologist Dr. Eric Pianka, while receiving an award from the Texas Academy of Science, said that the worldwide AIDS pandemic was, quote, no good, it's too slow, and went on to laud the virtues of Ebola because it would kill 90% of the world population quickly. But most frightening was the fact that in a crowd of over 1,000 prominent scientists, local newspapers reported that 95% of those in attendance gave Pianka sustained standing ovations every time he extolled the virtues of mass-culling microbes and man's destruction.
For InfoWars Nightly News, I'm David Knight.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. we have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life. The U.S. military is preparing teams for the U.S. That's CNN. We've got U.S. hospitals prepare themselves for Ebola panic as flu season looms. I do think this is a major crisis because it kills at least 70% of people that come in contact. That's with medical help, 90% if you don't have it. And the government's doing nothing to stop it. That's why people are right to be concerned. But instead of just panicking, we need to take action with a plan that can force the CDC, the federal government, to protect this nation from something that the panic alone could cause the next Great Depression. Here's a special report I filed Friday night with a solution to stopping Ebola. Here it is.
Stopping this disease won't be easy, but we know how to do it.
Fighting Ebola, the president says a travel ban won't work. So why are so many countries doing it?
A national strike is the answer.
I'm wearing the same shirt I was when I was in the car with that family.
There is zero risk. I said it. There it is. I shouldn't say that. There's no risk.
If there were any risk, I would not expose myself or my family.
A national strike will force Obama and the federal government to secure the borders and stop West African flights.
A travel ban is less effective than the measures that we are currently instituting.
Bravo, Sierra. I have a question for you. Do you want to end up like West African countries that are in a stage of panic and total collapse, with the UN estimating that over 1 million people will end up getting Ebola by December? Or do you want to stop it? The default federal law CDC regulation position for the last 30 years on Ebola, smallpox, Black Plague, you name it, has been the same. If there's a major outbreak in a country, ban travel from that nation to your country during the pandemic in that nation, and beef up security on your borders. AP reported today that African nations bordering the 5 countries hit have had no Ebola cases because more than 2 months ago, they banned flights out of those countries once it reached pandemic levels. And they put border guards with machine guns on their borders to let no one come in. 0 cases, they stopped the spread. The default setting in this country was to do the same. Instead, our southern border is totally wide open. Anybody who comes across is basically instantly legalized. The state and local jails are opening up and releasing all the illegals who are felons, who've committed crimes, because the feds won't even take them. The southern border is collapsing. The northern border is wide open in many areas. And the flights out of Africa are still coming in. Now, it was bad enough that they brought a bunch of Ebola patients from Africa here to begin with. That had never been done before. Then they put them in low-level regular hospitals, not high-level military level 4. But if that wasn't out of control enough, then they started letting people out of the Ebola countries fly here when 2 months ago, the UK, France, Arab countries, just like Africa, had banned people traveling by planes into their nations. And they set up serious screening on their borders because they didn't want Ebola. Spain didn't do that. They've got Ebola cases now. This is insanity, ladies and gentlemen. Only the U.S. and Spain are behaving like this. Central and South American and Caribbean countries have banned people from West Africa. General Kelly, the head of Southcom, admitted Africans are pouring in through the southern border, and that if Ebola ends up in Central and South America, there will be a huge exodus into the U.S. We've got to secure that border right now. But we don't have a lot of time. Once the panic starts, they won't be able to contain it. They've got to get in position now. This is default common sense. I've talked to top military brass, top virologists, epidemiologists, medical doctors on air. This is not my opinion. I've talked to Navy commanders, Coast Guard experts on disease. They say the default positions are being stopped. There is a stand down going on. To counter this, we are calling for a nationwide strike starting next Monday through Wednesday for you to stay home, especially if you're medical workers, police, EMTs that are going to be hardest hit by this, to draw attention to the fact that the federal government is on strike and not doing its default job, allowing these flights to come in. Even the Speaker of the House has said stop the flights. Senator Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Governor Jindal of Louisiana, but not President Obama. He's out defending this. Now remember, it was someone flying in from Africa that brought it here, now spreading to nurses and clearly others. Why do they want it here? To create a bigger crisis, to get more funding, to be a political distraction from all the other scandals. And the new czar, who works for Al Gore previously, who has no Ebola background or experience, no medical training, he's an expert at divvying up tens of billions in funding to insiders to run the Ebola disaster, where literally hundreds of billions could be made, not just on the vaccine, but on the disaster itself. We're seeing a bank robbery here, ladies and gentlemen. We're seeing a crisis where the managers of the crisis are set to make billions and billions of dollars per week during this crisis that could go on for months, if not years, if it's not contained now. So go to Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. Get the article with the hashtag #StopEbolaStrike. Send it out on Facebook, out on Twitter. Send our article with the videos of the general warning and others so that people understand we don't have to be powerless and just watch the federal government engage in criminal neglect by design. We can, A, put pressure on them to take action, but B, if this pandemic gets out of control and becomes, even worse, if this epidemic grows into a pandemic, then the people involved can be held accountable. But also it can be used as practice for sheltering in place and for self-quarantining if this gets out of hand. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, if you're not essential folks or people like myself that have got to be on air, self-quarantine as a test. We'll call it a national strike, call talk radio, call Congress, call the White House, call media, send out tweets, be an activist Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to fight Ebola and to stop Ebola with the Stop Ebola National Strike. We can stop it. There is a solution. There is a way to bring it down. There is a way to make them put the default actions in, and there may still be time to stop it before it spreads to thousands or even hundreds of thousands or more. And the whole Homeland Security apparatus has the pretext it needs for total federalization. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been warning of a biological false flag. This is clearly that. I don't know if they cooked it up in a lab, even though they have a history of doing that. I don't know that. I know that they've certainly let it in and are now doing everything they can to help it spread. So the ball is in your court. Send this to friends and family, your email list, Twitter, Facebook, other talk show hosts. Get them to cover it. Organize and be part of this strike, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we can draw attention to this and stop it. I'm Alex Jones signing off for InfoWars Nightly News with this emergency news bulletin. I'm in Texas. Just a few hundred miles away. That was Friday night, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News, part of that transmission, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock Central at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. The article is hashtag Stop Ebola Strike, national strike to force Obama to block West African flights. And I'm going to have Kit Daniels, who's up here working with us on Sunday night, repost it to the top of Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com with a red link. So you can find the article about it with all of the bibliograph links and the video that you just heard the audio from. So you can send it to your friends and family, post it on Facebook, Twitter, and other places. There is huge heat from Congress, you name it, to control the border, check for Ebola, and stop West African flights. So we can get this done. This strike's just one part of it. Back when I was a little boy, I would have feelings about things, gut instincts, and I never followed my gut, and bad things happened. But through the last 40 years of my life, over time, I learned to listen to that little inner voice, that conscience, that sixth sense, that discernment the Bible talks about. And the more I follow my inner voice, the more I have nothing but success and prosperity and blessings. Until I've gotten to the point where I follow my inner voice about 90% of the time. When I was 14, 0. It's funny, when you're 5, you follow your inner voice, and you kind of rebel when you're 14, 15, 16, you know, up to 20. But the more I follow that inner voice, that's common sense, the better my life gets. So let me tell you about my inner voice here. I shared it with you here on air. I go off geopolitics, I go off research, I go off reading the news, I go off talking to other experts. But at the end of the day, after I've intellectually looked at everything, I go with my gut. And you know that since about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, about 11 months ago, I began going on air saying I believe next winter is going to be MRSA, flesh-eating bacteria, hellish flu. And I've never talked like this on 20 years on air, because intellectually I could see all the local news stories and the numbers about flesh-eating bacteria and hospital-borne illnesses and drug-resistant staph and drug-resistant strep. But I also had 3 family members die in the last month of 2013 and the first month of 2014. And I talked to the doctors at the big hospitals where they were dying, and I did the research, and they just said that the antibiotics don't work anymore. And you stop feeding them to farm animals so we can have them in unsanitary conditions. It's creating superbugs. And so I said that I was doing everything I could this year to get my immune system straight and to get in as best a shape as I could and to get my family as in best shape as I could, because I said on air over and over again that I saw a biological crisis in the winter of 2014, 2015. I'm on record hundreds of times. People thought I was pretty weird, warning about something that hadn't even shown up yet. My gut saw family dying. My guts and my intellectual side, talking to doctors, realized there was a lot of mystery illnesses and stuff going on that nobody was talking about. And I was at the cemetery every couple of weeks burying somebody. My dad had pneumonia for 2 months. I had it for a month and a half. I've never had that in my life. Antibiotics didn't work, folks. I had to go alternative. We're talking a month of coughing up blood. We're talking about having trouble being on air every day. Coughing so much that your chest and muscles in your belly ache. Coughing up chunks of my throat. So there's a perfect storm of drug-resistant, antibiotic-resistant bacteria and drug-resistant viruses, and that's on record. You don't have to have a gut to know that. You don't have to have a sixth sense to know that. You can see it in the numbers. So when Ebola, previously the biggest outbreaks for 30-something people, when Ebola infects hundreds of thousands, kills 4,500, that's a whitewash number. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands from the numbers we've seen. They are really covering up. When the UN says 1.4 million are going to get it by December, and then our government leaves the borders open and flies people in from Ebola-stricken countries that aren't even citizens, and then sends janitors to clean up the vomit in the house with no breathing apparatus, zero, not even gloves, and they send this guy's kids to school, and they don't clean up the ambulance, and they send them to a regular hospital, and they get on the news and say, 0 chance you can get it. 0 chance. This thing doesn't show signs for 3 days like it used to. It's 21 days. It's mutated hundreds of times. It clearly is beginning to go airborne. That's even in the New York Times now. They're covering it up. And people's gut tells them this government has lied to us on every front. Even the Huffington Post, that's an arm of Obama, says that Ebola toll in West Africa is likely hugely underestimated. No kidding. There are whole towns where there's just dead bodies piled up everywhere and all over the streets. It ain't 4,000. It's probably like 1 million. I mean, it is 5 countries collapsing. By the way, AP reported on Friday, we covered this earlier in that piece, that the countries all around them sealed their borders, put troops with machine guns on their borders, and stopped the flights months ago. Zero spread. Zero spread in those countries. And every other country, Central, South America, the Caribbean, Europe, they all banned flights months ago. We haven't. And Obama sits up there with a straight face, and he says, hey, not going to happen, nothing's going to happen, or now that it's here, it's no big deal, it probably won't spread. And all the experts say leave the flights open. Bull, bull, bull. All they got to do is not issue West Africans visas for a few months. In those West African countries, they don't let people out of their houses in areas hit. And by the way, they want to get that going over here so they can pull that martial law system. And then martial law will save us. Medical emergency will save us. And the precedent is set. It's even in the news. Type in the headline, Obamacare gets a boost from Ebola. Or why Ebola is good for Obamacare. Yeah, big federal response. The media will say Obama's a savior when he's the opposite. So we've got to ask the question today. And I want to talk to medical workers, nurses, doctors, epidemiologists, virologists, police officers, jail staff. I want to talk to the custodians that are having to clean up these airplanes that have been protesting for almost 3 weeks and refusing. I mean, they had all these flights from Nigeria and places where people are vomiting and dying on planes last week. That was in the New York Times even, and in the New York Post. And they're just like, don't worry, there's no Ebola, without even doing a medical check. It just lands. We got a dead guy on board, died vomiting. There's some blood, don't worry about it. I mean, you can see there's a cover-up. And that's why people are so concerned, is because they have zero confidence. Zero confidence. Yeah, there's Obamacare may hold the key to saving the U.S. from Ebola. Out of FP, Foreign Policy and arm of the Washington Post. Their political, geopolitical wonk magazine. By the way, that magazine admitted a couple years ago that our government runs Al-Qaeda. But when they admitted it's okay and intellectual, when I say it, 12 years ago, it's evil, or 13 years ago.
Stopping this disease won't be easy, but we know how to do it.
Fighting Ebola, the president says a travel ban won't work. So why are so many countries doing it?
A national strike is the answer.
I'm wearing the same shirt I was when I was in the car with that family.
There is zero risk. I said it. There it is. I shouldn't say that. There's no risk.
If there were any risk, I would not expose myself or my family.
A national strike will force Obama and the federal government to secure the borders and stop West African flights.
A travel ban is less effective than the measures that we are currently instituting.
I have a question for you. Do you want to end up like West African countries that are in a stage of panic and total collapse, with the UN estimating that over 1 million people will end up getting Ebola by December? We are calling for a nationwide strike starting next Monday through Wednesday for you to stay home, especially if you're medical workers, police, EMTs that are going to be hardest hit by this, to draw attention to the fact that the federal government is on strike and not doing its default job, allowing these flights to come in. Even the Speaker of the House has said stop the flights. Senator Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Governor Jindal of Louisiana, but not President Obama. He's out defending this. Now remember, it was someone flying in from Africa that brought it here, now spreading to nurses and clearly others. Why do they want it here? To create a bigger crisis, to get more funding, to be a political distraction from all the other scandals. And the new czar, who works for Al Gore previously, who has no Ebola background or experience, no medical training, he's an expert at divvying up tens of billions in funding to insiders to run the Ebola disaster, where literally hundreds of billions could be made, not just on the vaccine, but on the disaster itself. So go to Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. Get the article with the hashtag StopEbolaStrike. Send it out on Facebook, out on Twitter. Send our article with the videos of the general warning and others so that people understand we don't have to be powerless and just watch the federal government engage in criminal neglect by design. If you're not essential, folks, or people like myself that have got to be on air, self-quarantine is a test. We'll call it a national strike. Call talk radio, call Congress, call the White House, call media. Send out tweets. Be an activist Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to fight Ebola and to stop Ebola with the Stop Ebola National Strike. And never forget, if you're watching this transmission, you are the hope, you are the resistance.